We're house hacking in a little different way this time, and we're talking about accessory dwelling units or ADUs. Now, ADUs are a great opportunity to earn extra income without just renting out rooms in your house. Now, it's possible that you can let a stranger or let somebody live in your house, use your kitchen, use your bathrooms, all of that good stuff. But an accessory dwelling unit allows you to do that without and still maintaining your privacy and giving them their privacy as well. Now, just earning extra income is not the only reason why you would want an accessory dwelling unit, which, by the way, you may have heard of ADUs called different things. Sometimes they're called in-law units because that's where you put the in-laws. Sometimes they're called, back when I got started in the mortgage industry, they were called granny units. And that's where grandma lived in the backyard in a little house. And she had her own little dwelling back there. So the official rule for it is an accessory dwelling unit, also called sometimes an additional dwelling unit or an ADU. Now, one of the really cool things about having an accessory dwelling unit or an ADU on your property is it will increase the value of your home. It's homes with an accessory dwelling unit. If you were to buy one, it's going to cost you a little more because it's actually considered a 2-unit or a multifamily house. So again, it has the ability to have additional living space. So you have that, or it's going to create additional income. If you own a home, and what a lot of homeowners are doing right now is they're taking out a cash out refinance, or they're taking out an equity line of credit, building these small additional dwelling units and then renting them out. And you can pay off that loan pretty quickly by doing that, because these aren't expensive to build and they're typically not very big. Now, the ability to have an additional dwelling or an accessory dwelling unit, the ability to have that is a zoning law issue. So it's important that you check with the building department or the zoning department in your community, and determine what the laws are or what the rules are. So when I lived in California for a long time, and California has a big push, they started passing laws to allow additional dwelling units where previously it was zoned only for single family residents. And there's a few reasons for that. Probably the biggest reason is there's not a lot of land left in Los Angeles County, but in particular where they were doing this. And so they passed laws to allow this to happen. This is a recent article out of Washington State. They're actually passing a bill that could allow up to 2 accessory dwelling units on a property that's zoned for a single family residence. So think about it. You basically have your house, your privacy, and then you have 2 apartments in the back or on the side or wherever. If you own an acre of land, you put them on the back. Now there are certain accessibility guidelines, things like that you need to be aware of. But that's good. That's good revenue. That's going to earn you, that's going to allow you to earn a lot more income from your property. And quite frankly, when you sell it, you're going to sell it as a property that has the ability to earn extra income. So what is an ADU exactly? So some examples of what an ADU could be. Sometimes it's a living area over a garage. So if you have like a garage off the house and then there's a room above the garage that's finished out, that could be an accessory dwelling unit. It could even be a living area in a basement. Now it has to meet certain guidelines for accessibility. But it could be a living room in a basement. Now, it could also be a small addition to the primary house. It could also be a manufactured home on real property. Now, what that basically means, what real property means when it comes to manufactured homes, is it needs to be on a permanent foundation on the land that you own. So you can't move it. If you can't move it around, then it could be considered real property, and you could designate that as an additional dwelling unit. Now, some of the characteristics of an ADU, how you can kind of determine whether it's an ADU or not. So, if it's 2 to 4 units, if it's like a 2 unit property or a duplex, 3 units, 4 units, that's usually built at the time of construction. They're usually similar in size. They usually share a wall. So it looks like one big house, but it's actually 2 separate doorways and there's a wall in between them. Or they could be detached, but they're usually built at the time of construction. An additional dwelling unit, however, is usually added on later, and it's usually smaller than the primary house or the primary unit. So that's a real good indication. And you can tell, if you go up to a house and it has a little house in the back, a little, 900 square foot living area in the back that's not attached to the house, that's an accessory dwelling unit. That's not necessarily a duplex. Now, the Fannie Mae guidelines, they are going to allow a maximum of 1 ADU per primary 1 unit dwelling. So if you live in Washington and you have 2 ADUs and you're trying to use a Fannie Mae loan to buy the property or to refinance the property, chances are they'll allow it, but they're not going to give you value for it. That's probably what would end up happening there. It's unlikely they wouldn't allow you to use the loan at all. A lot of times in those situations, it just cannot be given. It can't be given value, which means that you're not going to get the square footage. So the appraisal is not going to have sales comparables with 2 ADUs. Your property, even though it has 2 ADUs, is going to be compared to a property with 1 ADU, and that's going to hurt your valuation on your property. With a Fannie Mae loan, you cannot have 2 to 4 units. Or you can't have more than 2 to 4 units. That's the other guideline. Now, the amenity. So, what is considered an ADU? How do you know that it's an ADU? How do you determine that it's an ADU and not a duplex or not just a room that you're renting out? So, it has to have a separate kitchen. Right? That's important. It has to have a sleeping area, it has to have a bathing area, and it has to have bathroom facilities. So it has to have a shower or a tub, a sink, a toilet in a separate area, has to have a place that they can sleep, and you have to have a separate kitchen. Now, the kitchen requirements, so FHA doesn't mention that you have to have countertops or kitchen cabinets, but Fannie Mae does. You have to have countertops. You have to have kitchen cabinets. You have to have running water and a sink. You have to have a stove or a stove hookup. Now, those are going to be guidelines that are specific to Fannie Mae. Where you don't necessarily see those guidelines with every other with different agencies, with like FHA, for example, does not mention the stove or the stove hookup, and it doesn't require you to have countertops and kitchen cabinets and things like that. Now, this is really important. If you use an accessory dwelling unit for extra income and you want to count that extra income as income for, say, if you're trying to refinance this house or if you're trying to buy a new house, and you want to use that income as qualifying income for a new mortgage, it has to be reported on your tax returns as rental income. And it has to be treated as rental income. If you're not doing that and you're just taking cash every month, or they're just paying you, you're not going to be able to use that income. So while you'll still have the benefit potentially of the increased value of the home, you're not necessarily going to be able to prove or document income unless you're separating it, because the underwriter is going to use the income from your pay stubs or your tax returns. And that's why you want it on your tax returns, because you want to show it as rental income. Now, when it comes to accessory dwelling units, there's obviously a lot more to this. One of the things that I didn't mention here is like access, is it has to have separate access from the main house. Like it has to have a door that can go in and out of it. There are definitely more nuances. This is really just a broad overview and an introduction to what an ADU is and why it might be a great idea, whether you're trying to buy or if you're already a homeowner and you want to build one of these. You definitely want to work with an expert, because if you're trying to do a cash out refinance to build an ADU and you're getting quotes for how much that's going to cost you, and you talk to a loan officer who doesn't know the guidelines, they may not tell you everything. And if you don't build it to the proper specifications, it's not going to qualify as an ADU. It may be unsafe. The permits may not go through, and it may cost you time and money. So it's very important that you talk to an experienced mortgage professional that will look up the guidelines, the underwriting guidelines, and they'll determine, they'll present you with all of your options. They're not going to just tell you yes, no, or here's your option. They're going to say, listen, here are all the options. Here's why you qualify for these options or this option. Now, if you don't have a loan officer that you already know, like, and trust, we built findmywayhome.com back in 2007 after the last mortgage crash, really to educate and empower consumers like you to make more informed decisions and to connect you with real mortgage professionals, not these call center lenders where there's just some kid answering the phone that has no idea about the guidelines. They're just checking boxes and pushing buttons and sending you off to the next person to deal with it. So you can go to findmywayhome.com. There's links below, and there's two choices there. You can either have us match you with somebody, just let us know what you're looking for. We'll match you with a professional that we know can help. Or you can go to the directory and you can find somebody in your area that's licensed in your state, and you can watch their videos and read their blog posts and determine whether you like them and want to reach out to them, and then you can reach out to them directly. If you have questions and you don't want to talk to somebody right now, feel free to drop a question in the comments below. I'm happy to answer everything that I can, and I will help you look up the guidelines, and I'll help you make sure that you get the right answer. So again, that you're more informed. You're making educated decisions, and hopefully you can build yourself an ADU, earn a little bit extra income. So that's what I've got for you this time. If the Fannie Mae guidelines don't seem like they're going to meet your needs, also check out the videos on FHA, Freddie Mac. If you're a veteran of the armed forces, look at a VA loan. And if you're in a kind of rural area, look at the USDA loan and see what the ADU guidelines are for that. I have videos for all of those. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.